and welcome back to an episode of Real Conversations. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. This belief is perhaps best encapsulated by a quote from the great Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, it's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, nor where the doer of deeds could have done them better. No, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. With that being said, welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought I was going to laugh.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
I was looking away again.
Yeah.
So this is
you last time.
Have you said that enough that you just like you can say it in your sleep?
Yeah, so I haven't memorized, but I look at the phone because if I don't, I'm afraid whoever I look at is going to start laughing. Then I'm going to laugh.
True.
You don't want to misquote Teddy too.
I
It's
know.
kind of fun.
Well, this is an interesting dynamic if you're just listening and not watching. This is the first 4-person podcast that I've ever done. We've got John co-hosting.
Yo.
We've got Dane Laughlin
Thanks for having me.
and then Grant Johnson.
Nice to be here.
So this is going to be a really fun one. This podcast, honestly, it might break LinkedIn between all of our engagements. Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one. And you're two of the smartest guys that I know. And I'm really excited for wherever this conversation leads us.
Grant's gonna have to carry us today.
That's not true.
Yeah, I think we should start off with Grant. You were late here. Can you kind of describe why you were late?
You're calling him out already.
Man, okay. I thought I was telling my friends this, but I have a thing where you know how when you drive and you kind of space out and you just zone out, you're thinking about other things. Everybody does it. I just happen to do it and like wake up in my high school parking lot. So
All right, I just want
get
to.
my driver's license.
Everybody
for
does
both,
it.
'cause
Yeah, I just want to call out that you started by saying these are two of the smartest guys I know. And Grant just wakes up in his high school parking lot. So
That's because I'm thinking about other things.
You think about Vision Vest.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's true.
Yeah. Well, that is not a problem that I've really had too many times, Grant, but I'm glad that you made it here safely. we were calling him and texting him and we didn't hear anything. It was like, oh no, what happened to Grant? He's usually pretty on time.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
taking a nap in the parking lot.
Yeah. My bad.
No, you're good.
You're all good.
So Dane, you went international here. You took a trip. How was
Yep.
that?
Yeah, no, it was really I mean, I think going international is like one of the best things that you can do, especially like when you're young and you don't have to worry about kids and all that stuff. We did some friends of ours got married in Rome, so we did like a
Oh,
Europe.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was sweet. Went to Amsterdam, Prague, Rome. Well, yeah, Rome, Tuscany, Naples, Nice, France, then back to Amsterdam. So it was quite the a couple weeks being gone. But yeah, Europe's amazing.
Was that the first time you'd been?
So I've been to Ireland and like the UK before. The thing that's crazy though about Amsterdam and some of those other places like Rome in particular is you realize that we don't have history in the United States like they have history. Like, you're walking through Rome and it's like you see that was built in, 1100. And
Yeah.
then below that, it was like a whole nother building. They're like, that was built in, 200 BC. And you're like, what? This is insane. Like humanity started here. So yeah, it was crazy.
I had gone to Europe like a month before Dane, and I like karaoke a lot. But you know that song, "Viva La Vida"
Yeah.
by Coldplay.
Yep.
Germans don't, and so I did that. And I performed that song in front of like 200 Germans, and it was so quiet. It was so awkward. And
Brutal.
Yeah, I had to take a selfie video too of me like doing it, like facing the whole crowd as they weren't singing along. Yeah, so that was my Europe experience.
Wait, what were you doing? Were you at a bar? Like, where were you doing karaoke at?
Yeah, just look karaoke bars. Switzerland, those are popping.
Okay.
Germans, they don't know that song.
Did they not know or did they not like it?
They did not know it. It was just like blank stares and a couple of people like
Maybe
awkwardly.
they were just very impressed.
They're like,
They were awestruck.
oh man. Yeah, I've never actually done karaoke. That'd be like a good time, especially international,
Yeah, it's great.
if they knew the song.
It's real great. Yeah, and there's like 200 people watching. I'm sure it's fun when they know the song.
So world's first karaoke podcast. Karaoke. What?
Grant, we're gonna toss a beat on, all right? And,
Yeah.
here's Viva La.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh man.
I was gonna say too, Grant, we gotta go full circle here. You've been on twice before and we've talked about it, but we are back-to-back intramural basketball champs. So
Yes.
I guess John too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Vital part here.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, maybe next year we had Rob on our team, dude. You could totally be on our team.
No. I'll have the headset on the sidelines.
You'll be coaching us.
Yeah.
So Grant, what's new in your life? Dane went international. You did some karaoke. What else is going on?
Been working on that vision vest, replacing sight with touch. Got a few things in the works. I'm building a humanoid. Yeah. So that's a robot human, and it's one of the first physical embodiments to that ChatGPT, which is a software. The goal is eventually to start a podcast with that. And so when you have all this data about people that are from the past, and we've talked about this, actually Dane talked about it with me, and then I stole it by talking about it. And you can have all this data. And so I was talking to the ChatGPT as Abraham Lincoln yesterday, and I was like, what are the biggest issues facing us today? And so Abraham Lincoln's on like, hereby art thou, and all that stuff. But he like went through the stuff that we're like the issues that we're facing today and his perspective. Obviously it wasn't Abraham Lincoln. So I'm going to start a podcast with that, interviewing different people from the past.
Oh my gosh.
And then eventually, get into, so projection mapping. So, like augmented reality, when you open up like Snapchat and you get the face filters,
Right.
Projection mapping is kind of the opposite of that. So you have a projector facing the person, or usually you could do it like Christmas lights too, something like that. And you can track where it's at. So I'm going to put like Abraham's Lincoln face on the humanoid by projection mapping to it. So,
man,
I'm super excited for it.
Do you have a video of the humanoid posted anywhere?
Yes. It's probably everywhere. It's been on LinkedIn a couple times.
They just fixed LinkedIn after Grant broke it.
Yeah.
Humanoid.
Yeah. It's on LinkedIn.
I'll pull it up on LinkedIn. Got Range's Instagram still pulled up here.
Do you have like a timeline for this humanoid podcast / projection mapping?
Yeah. So 1 month and 1 week is when it can
14 hours
is when the humanoid will be done, and then the projection mapping is all a little further along.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but then that's when you can have like a conversation with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Grant. I have oops. Everybody heard that for sure. So I have a question for you that I wanted to ask you, but I saved it for today. So ChatGPT is super interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. If you're watching this, or if you're listening to this, we're playing the video of Grant with the humanoid. You can find it on LinkedIn by just searching Grant Johnson.
Yeah, I had asked it, who are you? And it replies, I didn't not program this. It says I'm a person. And I was like, it kind of creeped me out a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so creepy.
Well, so here's my question, and it relates to this. So everybody's talking about generative AI, right now, and what the implications are for business, and is that like consciousness, all this thing. I wonder how much having a physical body plays into consciousness.
And before you answer this, let's define generative AI for the people listening who don't know.
So if anybody hasn't played around with ChatGPT, and I think it's GPT-4 now, it's a tool that was created by OpenAI, and it's a AI, artificial intelligence that you can talk to and have conversations with. And it's a really amazing technology. It's transforming so many different aspects of the way that we, interact with tools. Like, for example, Expedia now has it integrated. And so you can say, hey, I want to go somewhere with the beach that's under this much money and in this date, and it'll go and like essentially create an itinerary for you. And I mean, there's so many different applications.
Or if you have homework, you can say, write an essay about this book, include these quotes in there and a couple citations, and it'll do it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an incredible technology. But, the natural next step in that conversation usually is people go, oh my goodness, like, is this, is this an intelligent being? And I wonder, like, from a consciousness perspective, like how much of that depends on having like a body, like a self, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first there's artificial intelligence, and that's kind of the stuff implemented, like ChatGPT is artificial intelligence. And then you also get things like Tesla designed for kind of a specific task, but then there's artificial general intelligence. And then that's when it's actually like conscious, and I don't think we're there yet. I don't know when exactly we would be there or if it's possible. But to answer that question, first you'd have to get to artificial general intelligence when you get consciousness. When that would be like an example of trying to turn off ChatGPT and then being like, no, like that kind of scary. That's why everybody's kind of freaked out about it. As far as a physical part to that, I think not at all. You know what? I think that software could honestly would be just as threatening as somebody with a body, because I mean, you already see it today with different softwares driving humanity apart, different things where the algorithm that shows you whatever you want to see, different things like that. I mean, it could be scary too, that if it like knew Kung Fu too. But,
Well, so, but here's my thing. Like, I think consciousness isn't like how effective like a tool is, right? Like, you know, I don't see Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you know, technology being like a consciousness.
Mhm.
So, you know, the tool doesn't have a consciousness. My question is, like, in order to have consciousness, do you have to have a physical self?
my answer would still be no. Would it be for you?
Uh, I don't know. The reason I say that is because I think so much of like who we are is what we are. And if you don't have a what, who are you?
Well,
Right.
I think consciousness too is kind of like you have the ability to outwardly do something. And so if it's just software, sure, it could be verbal or it could write program or code, but like if it doesn't have the physical ability to do something, then maybe it's missing an element of that consciousness.
I guess maybe what I'm saying is there's never been consciousness without self.
Well, define conscious. Maybe we're just
Well, so you know, you talk about like AGI,
Mhm.
like I think that's the other thing is it's like general intelligence. So to be generally intelligent, do you have to be conscious?
well, define conscious is
Well, I'm asking you.
for my definition of it.
Well, just like, yeah, break that down.
We'll go with the ability to reason.
The ability to reason is consciousness.
Would we like a definition pulled up here?
Yeah, there
maybe.
you go.
All right, we're going to pull up definition.
The reason I'm asking that question is the thing I think is so interesting is if we think of consciousness as being AGI, like we've never had consciousness before that wasn't embodied by something.
So consciousness is defined as the state of being awake and aware of one's surroundings.
So in order to be aware of one's surroundings, like you have to physically be somewhere.
Yeah. And so by like self, you're meaning like a humanoid or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder, you know, again, like, you know, humans are, well, so everybody's going to argue about what's conscious, what's not conscious, you know, all that stuff, right? Let's just say that humans are the only conscious, you know, animals. Like consciousness has never lived in anything other than us. And so can you have consciousness in the form that we know it as, or does it require a proximity to some kind of physical thing?
This is deep.
This is
Yeah,
really deep.
we may be going way
No,
too
no.
deep. I'm just, this is something I've been thinking about, and I don't think I have enough IQ points to keep pounding away at this concept. And so I'm trying, that's why I'm bouncing off.
Well, now I'm wondering too, like would you want all five senses that you have maximum input too? Because if consciousness is awareness of your surroundings, do you need the visual, the sense, the smell, all of that?
Well, in the other question too, well, so like I would argue that consciousness doesn't depend on any one, because like you have folks that are blind or, you know, deaf or something like that, and they're still conscious, right? But like what happens when you can have more inputs than the five senses that we have too?
So like technically with it, I don't necessarily think it needs to be like a humanoid to have a physical body. I think like it could take over that, use the computer, use the camera, know its surroundings, and then technically that its physical body's everywhere if it took over all the different hardware, you know. So I think in some aspects it does need to, but I think ultimately it would live on a software.
My question would be, so if we're talking about the five senses, you have sight. Well, that's easy with technology. You just put a camera on it.
Mhm.
If you wanted something to be able to smell, how do you make the technology? What is smell and how can you mass produce that?
Yeah, so that's something that's really interesting to me. Like so in bioengineering, that was one of the things we
Okay.
talk about is like, you know, you have receptors in your nose, and it attaches to chemicals essentially, and that's how your brain perceives a combination of all these different molecules as being a smell. And so like I think you can get to those places. Like there's actually VR headsets where they're trying to create artificial smells. So like
Oh,
if you're in a
that's
cafe, like puffs a hamburger puff in your face, and you can smell that. But all of our senses are just physics and chemistry at the fundamental level. And so if we get a good enough understanding of the physics and chemistry behind it, then you can replicate it. That's the other thing that's kind of, so like, sorry, I'm bobbing and weaving here.
No,
But like, if you break it down to that level, consciousness is just a bunch of electrical synapses in your brain. And so if you replace that with, synthetic synapses, then can you replicate that? I don't know.
but there's also the element of like uniqueness, because we can all be in the same environment and have a different perception of what just happened too. Like everyone's experience is different, even though we may have very similar sets of inputs.
But I would say, is that a flaw though? I mean, for like, artificial intelligence or something like that, if they all had the same perception and stuff like that, is that more empowering than us having all of our different
Sorry,
kind of viewpoints?
you just sparked. Well, what I was thinking about is like, if you have AGI and it's all connected, then like, what is that experience? Because you have inputs from different perspectives, overall. Like that's one thing that's scares me about the AGI concept is, the only experience that we'll ever have as humans is our own singular experience, likely, unless we get like Neuralink and
It's on the way.
connected or whatever.
Yeah.
But the like AGI concept, so ChatGPT is a great example. We were talking with some folks and they're like, oh, well, these chatbots have been around for a long time. This isn't groundbreaking. And it's like, well, the difference is that it's having 1 million conversations a day.
Yeah.
And that scale, a human may have 1 million conversations in their life. Like, I don't know what the
Right.
number is, but the scale of the data entry or input is so vastly different than what our perception of what like humans will ever be is. And so like, that's what's crazy to me is thinking about, everybody has a different perception, but like what happens when you're interpolating between all of these different perceptions from all these different AGIs to create kind of a universal consciousness or whatever that is,
Yeah.
I have a side question to that point. So I was talking to my grandpa last weekend. He's very like old fashioned. I just got a new watch for running. I was telling him how it's got the GPS feature. It's like, this is great. It's gonna be able to help me track my runs more accurately. And he's like, well, they can track you now. And I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of just how it goes. With both of you being people who know like and understand this side of the world so much better than the average person, and all of the data that we are giving out every single day, like ChatGPT, all of our conversations are stored and all of that information is being taken. Are you guys okay with what's happening? How do you feel from a privacy standpoint about all of the data that's being given out and taken?
You first, Dane?
Okay, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Tools are just tools, right? Like nothing's intrinsically evil or intrinsically good. It's how people use it. I'm more scared of the people using the technology than I am of the technology, is I guess the way I would frame it. I think it's I think the reason this is a difficult conversation is because it's such a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I think the broad, kind of talking about everybody in general, probably needs to get to where they have a better understanding of how and what their data is used for. Because, like if I go get an MRI and they say, hey, can we use this data for other things? It's like, well, I don't know. What are you going to use it for? But if they came to me and they said, hey, we're going to use your MRI information to train an AI on spotting tumors for cancer, like, sure, I'm okay with that as long as like it's anonymized and all the other things. So I just think that we have to get more nuanced in the way that we communicate how data is being used in a way that people understand, the ramifications of it and why it's a good thing. It should never be like, why is it a bad thing? Right? Those should be listed ahead of time. But yeah, I think it's a slippery slope.
I do think that people need to be more straightforward with how they're using their data. And along those lines, it referenced a certain story that I read that so Target, whenever they're first starting, this is long before they were just collecting all the data like that you're mentioning about GPS, different things. But by the things that you were buying on your receipt, they could actually tell if you were pregnant or not. And so then they were out sending these coupons in the mail to these people. And then there were people opening the mail, getting all these pregnancy ads, different things like that. So I think it's and that was just by algorithms, So I think you got to be a lot more straightforward with it. And then what the whole thing, like if somebody really wanted your data, and when I started taking this hacking course a while back, and I had to stop because it was
grant things.
It was like too much power, and I just thought I was gonna like end up in jail. But yeah, and because there's nothing stopping me from just like going to a public place and like putting cats on everybody's computer, that'd be funny. But
I stole your data.
the way it was described to me is that like if like a hacker wanted to find your data, it's equivalent of you walking down the street and you're not actively concerned about black belts in jiu-jitsu just rapidly like taking you down. But if there were, then they could,
You
so
don't know me, man.
Yeah.
That's the way that
Speak for yourself.
yeah. So even if that company itself has your data stored, then there's always people that would maybe be able to get to it too. Go ahead.
Yeah, something just popped into my head that I learned the other day that's related to this, but made me think of, so we're talking about like data privacy is what it comes down to. Like quantum computing, one of the big use cases for quantum computing is encryption breaking. And so like quantum computing is not good for most things that an actual computer does, but in the case of breaking encryption, which is what protects all of our privacy, it's really good at that. And so I read an article, there are people who are stealing data that's encrypted right now and just storing it so that when quantum computers get to a cost-effective model, they can decrypt all of that information
Oh, wow.
in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So explain what quantum computing is. What does it do? I mean, that's a broad question too.
Who is quantum computing?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna do my best. I'm not a physicist. I'm not. This isn't like my area of expertise. But so a normal computer works by, zeros and ones. That's what everybody always hears, right? Quantum computing works by spin of an atom, and essentially, there's a lot more variation in between 0 and 1 than 0 and 1 are two options, but the spin there's lots of variables in there. And so they have these things called qubits, which are kind of like processing units of a quantum computer. And essentially the qubits are like how many processors, you have is how many qubits you have. And so, quantum computers are like a very small number of qubits right now, like maybe 20, right? And they're estimating that you need like 1,000 to 3,000 to break like, a traditional encryption, algorithm. But it just scares me for like, Google and IBM and a few others are like the only people who have access to quantum computers because of how expensive they are. Like imagine that they commoditize that.
Yeah.
Like that's a scary concept too.
Well, Moore's law is like every 7 years, the technology can double. And so it's like, it's bound to happen. It's going to happen.
Well, and I wonder too, that's an interesting idea. I don't know if Moore's law applies to quantum.
Really?
Yeah, because that's another Google.
I'll ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. Hey Jamie, where's Jamie at? We need to ask him.
I know.
Yeah.
We need to get a Jamie. Actually, I will look that up while you guys keep talking because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I always heard about quantum, but I've never really understood. I don't know if anybody really truly understands it.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I feel bad because I probably just butchered it. There's probably somebody who watches it and goes,
This does not apply to quantum computing. So
Interesting.
I redact my statement.
well, now I have a rabbit hole that I can go down tonight and research why does Moore's law not apply to quantum computers. But I mean, the thing that's scary to me right now is that you have AGI, to bring it back to the actual conversation that I distracted us from. You have AGI, you have quantum computing, you have genetic, like CRISPR technology, you have blockchain. Like there's so many step changes in the way that we think about the world. And people can't really handle like they might be able to handle one step change, but handling 10 of them at the same time, that's a big step, stacked on top of each other. So I just wonder what that means for the divide between the people who use and take advantage of the technologies versus like somebody who is like, I don't need that.
That's the reason for that, why they're wanting to do that 6-month thing, right?
Mhm.
And usually that comes after a problem already happened.
Explain the 6-month thing.
Yeah, sorry. The 6-month thing is Elon Musk and all those other tech leaders, they're wanting to have a 6-month halt on training AI so that we can get the right regulations in place. Because usually the regulations come after a widespread problem happened. They're wanting to get ahead of that before it causes a big issue.
So I wonder what happened, what snuck out of the lab.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah, there's a lot of thoughts with that. If we could even get the right regulations in place by the end of the 6 months, and what would that mean for it? And if that would even restrict people, yeah, it's tough.
Well, that's a great. So I think this is funny. So like they're called large language models or llamas. And Facebook had one of their large language models get hacked, and then it went open source. And so it was then available on like GitHub for anybody to go and tweak. And they went from like this large language model that it took like essentially a supercomputer to run and was crazy resource intensive to like something that will run on your smartphone and achieve essentially parity with the original results. They did it in like the open source community is like I don't know who, but like the open source community did that in like 2 months. And so, it was funny because originally when ChatGPT came out, they're like, this will never be like a Google Assistant because it's too resource intensive and all these different things. Like 2 months later, that whole idea is completely blown out the window because somebody's done it. And so like that pace of change is insane.
Things are happening very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, another one too that I've heard about, I don't know where it's at. You're a good person to ask, actually, is a biomedical engineering, right? So I've heard about like gene manipulation, like being able to actually, I'll let you describe. You're more suited.
Yeah, no, like CRISPR, and there's a lot of different technologies that are being developed in that space. But essentially, what it allows you to do is you can go into the genome, and like if we understood what sections of the genome, which we do for the most part, we've mapped the genome for humans for the most part. If we understand what sequences of genes lead to diseases or lead to various things, you can actually splice out those sections of genes and then insert a healthy gene sequence. And then essentially, your genes are what the body uses to produce the cells that form your body. And so if you can splice that out and give it, good instructions as opposed to bad instructions, then.
Well, I feel like you can, at that point, just take it a step further and build a kid, like blue eyes, 6 foot, whatever. Like you can start to get
like
into the
super
traits.
soldiers.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen a movie called Gattaca, you should
I've
watch
not.
it. It's Gataca,
Okay.
I think. It's the whole premise of the movie, though, is like you have people who could afford to create their kids, and then you have like normal humans that were born in a traditional manner, and like you end up with this divergence in society where like you have like super intelligent, very capable, and then you have like the normal people,
like you and Grant versus John and I.
Well, I think you guys are on the upper end. But it's another one of those things. Like I said, the common theme across all these different technologies that we talked about is that there's a massive separation between the user and people who don't use it. And like that's what's worrisome to me is is there going to be a huge divide in the population based on technology? We haven't had to worry about this in the past. Like, if your neighbor bought a car and you were still using a horse, like you both got to work, you just left a little earlier, right? But like if one person uses ChatGPT tutor and makes them much more effective at learning things versus somebody who goes through a traditional school, give that 10 years of progression and you have vastly different outcomes for those people. And if that's dependent on resources, so like, if only high income people can afford to put their kids through ChatGPT school, versus, traditional school or whatever, you'll have segmentation in the market. And that's what's worrisome to me, is like, I want to make sure that access to the tools is as ubiquitous as it possibly can be.
Yeah, because that's highly commercializable. Like you have someone who has a lot of money, they want to pay for all of the best possible outcomes for their children, so they can pay an absorbent amount of money. But the lower class citizens are not going to be able to do that, and that's a scary thought.
Yeah. Well, and so like Khan Academy.
Yeah.
Okay. Love like Khan Academy got me through school, like college. Yeah. So they have a new tool called Khan Amigo.
Okay.
And it's literally, they've integrated GPT-4 into a curriculum for kids. And it's like amazing. Like one example, there's a YouTube video that I'll send to you, but one example is there's like passages of books, and like, let's say it's Great Gatsby, the kids read through the book, normally, but at the end of each section, in order to keep going, it's like, okay, ask me a question. And then you ask, or it asks the student a question and they have to answer. And then the tutor essentially goes, yeah, that's a great answer, but have you thought about, changing it a little bit to this, or like, have you thought about this alternative? And then it'll say like, are you connecting to what's going on here? And the person the student may say, well, it's hard for me to kind of understand why Great Gatsby might be looking at the green light across the water, kind of thing. And then the response is like, speak to me as if you were Great Gatsby and tell me about the green light across the water. And it says, oh, old sport, and responds as Great Gatsby. And it's like the contextualization of that data or that information into a way that allows people to learn is crazy. And Grant's thinking over here.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And going back just a little bit, when we're talking about gene manipulation and all that, you know what I don't think it's talked about enough is cloning. Like all the horses that win, and I don't know if it's polo or the horse racing, but they clone them over and over again. So it's the same horse.
Really?
Yeah. Right.
Seabiscuit.
Yeah.
6.
And so when you get into this gene manipulation and then you're cloning it, man, I'm thinking of this like whole clone army, like which is a separate thought, but
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Clone Wars.
Wait, I gotta look this up. I had no idea that they cloned the horses.
We learned this in high school.
Watch Grant just be lying to us.
I think I remember the first clone was like a sheep or
Yeah,
something. I
yeah.
remember seeing that. Yeah.
Wow.
And what's weird is like that you can apply the same thing to humans, and so there could like be a clone among us.
Like, what are twins, dude?
Yeah. You're telling me.
This is trippy. Like, this is such a deep level. I feel like the brain power coming from this side of the table is far greater than what you and I have right now, John.
Hey man, I'm just a sponge out here.
This is gonna be the worst podcast of all time. People will be like, what were they even talking about?
They're going to take like brain breaks. They're going to have to pause and just like, oh my gosh.
This is what Dane and I do at work all the time.
This is fun.
All right, so I have another one for you guys.
Oh boy.
Sorry. Like, as we're talking, more and more questions that I have for myself that I don't know how to answer come up.
You're like generative AI.
Yeah. Dane GPT. Yeah. So here's one thing. Like, imagine they create like AGI, right? And AGI can run on your phone. So you have like, it's like Her, right? Where the guy falls in love with the electric. Have you seen that movie?
I've not.
Okay, there's a movie called Her where the like main character falls in love with like this digital thing, right? So no body, it's like on a phone,
Okay.
etc. What I've thought about is like, if you get artificial general intelligence into a phone, like imagine 400 years in the future, people are going to look back on us like savages because we just carried our phone around in our pocket, all day. And it's like the equivalent of just like carrying, a person or whatever around. They're like, what jerks, They're
going to have like technology rights movements or whatever.
Yeah. They're gonna be like, you can't put your phone in your pocket for more than an hour at a time or whatever. But yeah, I thought about that. It's like, what are the ramifications even for the rules of society, as general intelligence makes its way into things that are not humans?
You guys, I know technology is obviously good for you, but do you guys ever I'm entering this zone right now where I'm like, I just want to go up into a mountain. Maybe there's like a log cabin.
Like Montana, yeah.
Maybe there's no internet connection. Maybe I'm just out there. I got a bow and arrow. I've got a pair of Hokas and maybe a good running watch. Like
Bow and arrow.
A bow and arrow.
like sometimes it just getting away from technology and like having nothing around. Like we went to Minnesota and we went kayaking and camping, and there was like no technology interference. It was just in nature. I'm afraid of that going away in the future.
Yeah, sorry, I'm pausing because I'm thinking, Grant, you should go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell so far in the future, but ultimately in the near future, I don't think that, I think there'll be a time and place for both of it. There's definitely times that I just cannot think about it anymore. But I mean, it's a fun space to be in. And ultimately it's the discussions that we're having now that are steering it in the right direction and that people are thinking about it right now. And so, I don't think in the near future that kayaking will be eliminated or shoot, but then we get into like some of the VR stuff.
Right.
And, how like if you could, instead of taking vacations, then what you can, as VR gets better and better, how close to a real experience you can actually have. And so what's the point of traveling when you could just put on like a VR headset and all the suit that can make you feel like you're at the beach and you hear all the sounds like you would and see everything that you would. So I really hope not.
But you just made an argument for what's happening.
Now you know my brain that's going on all the time. Yeah. I think the correct answer is there's always a balance. There's definitely a lot of benefit that can come from VR. I mean, imagine not just hearing a lecture when you're in second grade about George Washington, but going actually to cut down the apple tree or whatever he did with him as he talks to you in a VR headset. There's a more immersive way to learn, which is just one pro. There's tons of pros with it, but that alongside a lot of very big cons.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always going to be value in physically being at a place or physically. I mean, we're here in person, right? Having this conversation.
Right.
This could easily been like a Teams call, but there's something different about sitting in front of somebody and having that conversation. So like, I think there will always be opportunities, you know, like, so the vacation one's kind of funny because it's like vacation's awesome. Like why change a good thing? You know, like why do vacation unless you like can't afford it or, you know, there's
Right.
something that like barrier to it. I think it's more that these types of technologies will be implemented places where it's not great. You know, like reading about George Washington cutting down is it an apple tree or a cherry tree?
I heard that was
I
actually
don't know.
a false.
Yeah, I heard
it was a
all
fable.
false,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
Well-
I said George Washington, and I was like, what did he do?
Yeah. Well, okay. So you're reading about, you know, whatever aspect of history, like that's such a suboptimal way to learn. And so I think where a lot of these technologies will be applied to begin with is actually in the things that are not great right now. And so I don't think you have to worry about kayaking because kayaking is pretty great. You know, like
Yeah.
people love to do it. They're willing to spend the money and take the time. My hope is that we just see it kind of cascade into things that are more difficult to do right now that could be much better.
Yeah, I hope the experiences like this remain the same. Like there's something to be said for being in person, looking someone in the eye and having these conversations versus I know people that are like, oh, just call me or we'll just do it on Zoom. And I'm like, we're not that far from each other and we're not that busy. We should be in person. There's a special component to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that brings to question like Neuralink, like if you have that all like implanted in you or, you know, where it's always running or something like that, do you think that's something that will come in the near future that maybe won't be able to be shut off? You can't escape that?
And what is Neuralink to? Let's
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess.
So Neuralink's the Elon Musk company where this is actually really cool. And this might be a video to pull up if you're interested. But so Neuralink, they started out because they want to create a neural implant that goes in your brain. And it's for people who are like quadriplegic or, you know, have some form of mobility, you know, challenge or like blindness or, you know, any of those types of diseases but like injuries or diseases or whatever. And they actually just did, so the video that you should look up is Neuralink monkey milkshake. And yeah, it sounds crazy, but essentially what they did is they installed a Neuralink into a monkey's brain and they tracked a lot of the behaviors that it was having. And so, you know, the game Pong,
Yeah.
where there's like the two lines that move and the balls bounce back and forth. Well, so what they did in this video is, what they did is they had the monkey grasp a joystick and they, you know, to move the thing up and down. And every time that it successfully blocked the ball from, you know, losing, it gave a little bit of like banana milkshake, you know, to the monkey, right? So it's incentivizing it to do something. Well, the crazy thing is, after a while, they disconnected the controller or the monkey, so you can see the joystick.
Yep.
You know, there, and that little tube is where they're feeding the the milkshake from. But the crazy thing about this video is they actually disconnected that joystick. So that joystick isn't connected to anything. They're using the neural link that's installed in the monkey's brain.
Really?
And it's thinking
my
about
gosh.
moving that.
Yeah, the same
bar.
neurons are firing, and so you're able to monitor that with Neuralink, the same neurons that whenever you move the joystick up, and so then you control it with your brain.
Is Neuralink Bluetooth? Like, how is the information that's in your head getting outwards to something else? Like, I don't understand that element.
Yeah, well, so like the things that need to be fast are going to be like, you know, local compute, right? Like it's processing it right there. And then I think it's likely that it'll be Bluetooth or like Wi-Fi 6 or some other, you know, connectivity protocol. But, you know, so that's crazy, right? They can understand what is going on when the neurons are firing by monitoring it, and then they can replicate that as an input into another, you know, tool. So I think this is where they show.
This is absurd.
Yeah, so like these are the neurons firing, and so they're using AI essentially to read those neurons to understand the inputs, you know, from the monkey. So to your question though, like, can we turn it off? I think that's a hard question, because if you're paraplegic and it allows you to walk and do everything normally, like, do you want to turn it off?
Right.
And like, is that a dangerous slippery slope where it's like, okay, I can't turn this thing off, but I hate the fact that like I'm stuck with this other thing in my head all the time. So that's an interesting.
Well,
Then Grant's kind of hack into it. And
Yeah,
make you walk
yeah.
places.
Yeah, he's gonna put a
Watch
cat
that
picture
before.
in front of your eyes.
But right now it's just monitoring the neurons, and so it's not activating any of them. To be able to like, where it get dangerous for you, it would need to be able to manipulate the neurons that you are feeling. Right now it just monitors it. So that would be a next step.
Yeah, I can't feel like it's that far off though.
Yeah, no.
Like if we're at the point where we're monitoring, I feel like the next step is how do I manipulate?
You know what's crazy? So on that same different topic, but same concept, with things that we're talking about that have been on the podcast, that have happened already in the future that we predicted. So I mentioned that there are people probably preserving their intelligence with AI by
Right.
training them on the model. And then so a listener from this, Jonah Duloc is his name, and he had come to me. He said, what if you're able to replicate your voice and different things, and then you're able to like call your grandma and, hey, grandma, I need like $1,000 and please like wire it over me. It's an emergency.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like
happened.
somebody who's maliciously doing
Yeah.
that, you know, so instead of it's like, hey, it's a Nigerian prince and I need,
yeah.
you know, instead it's like
Yeah.
you calling your grandma, asking for money and giving her information.
Yeah, because how do you authenticate who the person is on the other
Yeah.
side?
Yeah, you can't. And so a mother got called, and it was her daughter's
real,
voice. Yeah,
by the way.
it's happened. So her daughter's voice, like screaming and yelling, with this guy demanding ransom money for it, and like, this is your daughter's voice, and she's like yelling, and it wasn't an actual daughter. It was an AI replication of the daughter's voice.
From the same
Oh,
phone number, or how
God bless.
was the message received?
I didn't check that, but it's on the news, and you could probably look it up.
That gave me chills.
This
That
is
gave me
when I want to
chills.
go to my cabin in Montana.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had talked about this stuff,
Yeah.
you know, it had
Yeah.
already happened. I thought this would be like years till that. Wow.
Jacob's giving me Ted Kaczynski, or what's his name? Ted Kaczynski vibes. The Unabomber dude.
Dude, I'm getting freaked out here.
No, yeah. To go to your topic, I agree. I don't want to talk about this. It scares me.
Oh my gosh, dude.
But I think it's important for people to separate too. And I think it should be a right that people can separate from the technology
Yeah.
and opt out.
Sam, I'm gonna do a hard transition here. All right. People find both of you guys interesting as people because I know you professionally. what is maybe your favorite thing to do outside of technology? Like, not something that's technology enabled. What's a hobby or something you like to do, Dane?
Oh gosh.
You're first. Actually, no, John, you're first.
Okay.
Oh, me? I just like to work out and hang out on podcasts and stuff.
You're doing a great job.
That's about it. All right, popcorn, Dane.
Yeah, so in my spare time, I like camping a lot. So I identify with what you're, talking about there as far as, disconnecting. And then the other thing I like to do is I like to work on classic cars. And
That's cool.
I think the
Nice.
reason I like to work on classic cars too is because it's simple. Like mechanically, like there's an art to like being a good mechanic, but mechanically they're like simple. And so you can kind of like aimlessly, do things. And then sometimes there's little, problems to solve, but for the most part, it's like, okay, I need to change the oil filter. And then it's like, you go and do that or, whatever. So I think it's kind of a therapy for me.
Yeah.
Getting away from the complexity of some of the other things that we work on.
What is the coolest classic car you've worked on?
Oh man. So I grew up working on Novas, like old 1960s Novas with my dad. He has a pretty cool 1966 Nova convertible, and they actually didn't make a Nova convertible in that year. And so it was a 1962 that got converted to a 66. And so it's
Wow.
like, it's beautiful now. But some people are like, oh, I'm a Porsche guy. Oh, I'm a Dodge guy or Mopar guy. Like I like it all, like I like old Honda Civics. I like old muscle cars. I like Ferraris, all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm not picky when it comes to cars.
Yeah. Well, Ferraris are on back order right now until 2025. I saw.
Oh, well, you better get my order in. Yeah.
I know you were mentioning putting one in.
Yeah.
What about you, Grant?
If I need to give a more specific answer, then just let me know. But I really like trying new things that I've never done before.
Okay.
And that's why you can't just place it on like a specific thing like karaoke. Like the other week I did a mime routine and I went
Dude, that was awesome.
I went to a Renaissance fair the other day. I do karaoke a lot, things that are like that make you uncomfortable and it's just like funny. I love that stuff. So I think that encompasses what I like to do. And usually when I get good at it, that's when I don't like doing it anymore. So yeah, that would be my answer.
I like that a lot actually, because it's there's kind of like this social element of dressing up as a mime is kind of an interesting thing to do, or going to a Renaissance fair, and it's like uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so the way that you just always say, screw it, I'm gonna go do that. I don't really care what other people think. It's like a very authentic and genuine and exciting way to live.
Yeah, it's so fun. And you meet some really fun people, really like kind of strange people too.
Like Keenan.
Yeah, Keenan loves doing that. I always got to pressure my friends into doing it. I got to test the waters a little bit. I'm like, would it be cool if we did a mime routine? And they're like, yeah, it would be. Yeah, so I'm lucky to have some friends that like really enjoy doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I signed up for every intramural sport, ones that I never done before, like bowling. I never competed in. I bowled before, but never.
How were you?
We lost first round. That was yesterday.
It's still fresh.
Yeah. That's a tough L, man.
Yeah. The oil patterns. There's oil patterns on the thing, which I found out the other day. And so
he bowled a full round before knowing that there were different patterns on
it. Shocker lane. They don't have the right oil patterns for mine.
Oh, okay.
So,
That was.
Yeah, it's not my home court.
Well, our Shocker bowling team is incredibly good, so they probably beg to differ.
I have their shirt. Yeah.
You're not wearing it.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sadly. But I worked to the baseball game the other day, and they just recently won the championship, and everybody was telling you congratulations.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did a podcast with my friend Brady from the track team. I was wearing this jacket, and I was like, man, it's really hot in here. So I started unzipping the jacket, and I was wearing his track jersey underneath. And he's like, what the heck you doing?
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Shoot, we need jerseys like for work.
What?
So people can wear ours.
Yeah,
we're gonna do a limited drop Coke collab with Real Conversations. It's gonna say Johnson on the back for Grant.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So if you had to start a business tomorrow, I'll let you guys think about this, but I'm curious, all three of you, what business you would want to start.
Can I grab a water?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see. That's a good question. So we're just
Yeah,
sitting in dead air here.
I think we should popcorn to Grant.
Yeah, Grant, I think you're up first.
True. I'll have to look at my notes for what.
All right, I got one.
Okay.
God, carry the team today, guys. Come on. So I like this business model. I don't know if it's actually like a good, that's like an idea, but I like this business model, and I've been thinking about it for a while. So you know how like everybody has a smartphone, right? And we all have screensavers for our smartphones. We don't really usually pay attention, to the screensaver. You might like the first time that you install it, but this isn't 2008, and like nobody cares about ringtones and screensavers anymore. But I was thinking about this, like imagine an application where you could install it on your phone and like you gave it access to your screensaver on your device, and you could run ads to people's home screens, and you just do a revenue split with them. So you say, hey, download this application. I'm going to run apps on your ads on your home screen. And then you'll get paid $15 a month or whatever for having the app installed. And then if you end up like, you could do like a bonus thing where it's like, hey, if you buy anything off of the ad that gets cycled through, like you get 75% of the revenue, of the kickback that you get. But I like this model because it incentivizes ads for the right reasons. So it incentivizes people to help with the feedback loop of getting good advertisements because they get paid a kickback, on that. And then also, you can, like, people benefit from their own data being used to run advertisements.
And you have the different ad slots too. Like you could have one giant ad, or you could have two small ones. You could have different monetization tiers for the customers.
The other thing I was thinking about is like advertisements are pretty boring. Like if you think about like print advertisements, like you could have custom designed advertisements to look like wallpapers. And so like you could have like a cool cycling wallpaper, but they're advertisements for different things.
Or maybe a little bit more on the invasive side. What if you gave the app access to your camera roll, and let's say that I'm a t-shirt company, I could put a picture of my t-shirt on you. So it's a lock screen of you and your girlfriend, but you're wearing the t-shirt.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, that looks kind of nice on me. I should check that out.
Yeah. No, I think that's like such a cool idea though, to do a rev like split on advertising with the consumer, because I think it aligns the incentives for everybody involved. Because it's invasive, but you're opting into it. The other thing I thought about is like, what if you integrated that into like, you reach out to T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T and you just said like, hey, if you come with this app pre-downloaded on your phone, your bill goes from $100 a month to $50 a month.
Right.
Can you imagine you start opting the ads and everywhere, like you're texting your friend, you get the little bubbles to pop up and it's just a quick ad, and then your text comes through, or like you're calling someone and they're about to pick up and it's like a 10-second, I don't know, ad from wherever.
Yeah. But no, that would be my business.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a powerful move. It's just always there. So you're always thinking about it,
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, I think you're incentivized to engage with it too, right?
Yeah.
So like if you like to buy stuff on, Amazon or whatever, like if you know that you're going to get a kickback for buying things from Amazon, like the likelihood that you're going to, when you're starting up the app and it says, what do you like? The likelihood that you're going to be accurate about the things that you want to do is much higher than if it's just like, oh crap, like,
Right.
I'm not going to pay attention to the ad anyway, like skip,
Yeah.
So I think also like being able to have people shift their preferences over time would be interesting. And so they could say like, hey, it bothers me when a dog food, thing is on the back of my phone screen, like change it to technology or something like that.
Yeah. And if it's like you mentioned, you're a big watch guy, if it's like, you're going to be buying a watch in the future, you're not necessarily needing one today, but you're looking at all these watch ads over the course of the next year, the likelihood that you're going to buy one of the ads that popped up, or you're going to buy from one of those ads, is probably really high. And so it makes sense from your perspective because you get the kickback as well as you just converted for the business as well.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I have my answer.
Okay.
And I'll start off by saying I don't think that it will make money, but
a great business, Grant.
yeah,
It's called a charity.
Okay, so it's already in the works too. I'm finding a group of people, and they're all engineering based at this point, but it'll be based on content, and so all the different platforms that you can push out content to, with content consisting of different engineering projects we're working on. Like one of them, we're working on this jetpack right now, the humanoids in the process, all these different things. But then the money that you make from the different advertisements, then just goes back into more projects, which consist of more people. So you can eventually have these 30 different people working on an abundance of different things, and we're all gaining knowledge in the process. It can be projects that you have no idea how to build at the start, but you'll just figure it out as you go, and then that'll make good content along the way.
So it's like a hype house, kind of what they, yeah.
But for engineers.
So you're building a media asset, then is what you'd be doing.
Yeah.
We just lost our camera here, actually. That's interesting.
You might have ran out of battery, maybe.
Yeah. I'm going to check that out. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to look at the camera here
Sounds good.
because we're still recording. So that's good.
Oh,
Yeah,
me?
cheers.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been in the real estate space for a little while, and if I was to start a business tomorrow, I think, investing in real estate, advising people to invest in real estate. I think it's a volatile market right now with interest rates going up, and housing prices are ridiculous right now, and the competition out there is stupid. But I think it'd be interesting to be in that space and just try to navigate that a little bit, I guess. And
Yeah, no, so I've wanted to get into real estate for a long time, but
yeah.
the last like the years that I could like even think about getting into real estate, like I own my own house, right? But
Yeah.
like other than that, like the years for buying real estate have been garbage, right? Like it was either prices were way up and interest rates were way down, and now prices are way up and interest rates are way up, which is like even worse.
Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the Fed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But real estate's an interesting one. I think there's a lot of disruption that can happen in that market, too.
Yeah.
But
So it seems likely we're moving to an audio only podcast for the back half.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So I've been trying to upgrade the equipment, and I got a camera that I've been using, and it turns out that it's not charging while it's plugged in. And so this is only my second time using this camera. And so it's right around the 1 hour mark. It looks like we lose battery.
Well, good to know.
Yeah. So I'll be looking to acquire a charging cable here in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate the experimentation. I think that's great.
Yeah. No, it's better before, because I was using just a little webcam with like a 6-foot cord, and I propped on top of a water bottle.
Scrappy. I love it though.
I know we're slowly trying to make the quality just a little bit better here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, I like your idea a lot though, Grant, because I think that content's not going away. And I think if you can incentivize people to work and build the future of technology and like share that excitement, like look at your TikTok page. It's done remarkably well. And that's essentially just like a micro little step of what you're looking to do as a whole.
And one thing I learned about, so I've done a bunch of different businesses along the way. And one of them is like a Christmas light business.
Yep.
And it was directly me to the person. And so as many people you have, I had to put up their Christmas lights and stuff. They were musical Christmas lights. So the lights that you would typically have to music, and then they would light up in a sequence, aesthetically pleasing, or hopefully. But then I had to go up and I'd put everybody's Christmas lights on. And by the end of it, I just hated Christmas. And it was like December.
The humbug.
Yeah. But I found out like the nice thing about TikTok and different softwares is that it goes from me to TikTok and then TikTok to everybody, so it's just that one little line between us. That's so much easier to manage, and it's so much less time consuming, because I don't mind spending time on things, obviously, but it's more that the time where you're not growing and learning that I just hate.
Yeah. It'd be like having a conversation one-on-one with each of my listeners versus putting out one mix of audio and video and all of it being able to listen to it.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough to have different softwares like TikTok that enable me to do that. And I really enjoy it too. I have a fun time making content.
Well, the interesting thing about that too is if you can find somebody who has an engaging idea and is engaging on camera, then not only can you create content for the channel, but there's likelihood that whatever they create could be monetized as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so essentially you could be like an incubator and a media conglomerate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the idea that like people enjoy you build a following. I've never seen any I've only seen value in growing a following, because if you have an idea or project you want to commercialize to the mass, it's like you need people that already have trust in you as a brand, your own personal brand. And so by you posting that, that's what you're doing, is building that. So as soon as you go to drop something, you've got your core group of people, and they're only going to keep growing if you keep posting.
And I get like a million different people's insights too. What I'm so excited about the Humanoid is it's essentially a blank canvas, and there's so many things that can come from it. I think the podcast is just one of it. But when you push it out and if a video were to do well, then that's everybody's insights that are commenting on it with different ideas and the cool ones you get to implement, you know, and that's something that wasn't possible before.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to charge the camera battery if you guys want to keep talking here.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, we can keep talking.
Hey, so I have an idea too. This is more of like a business model than it is like a business.
Mhm.
But I thought this would be really interesting. And again, like I think this could be adapted to several different types of business. But like imagine like a revenue model for like software. Like imagine Netflix, right? And you have your base cost. Oh my goodness. You have your base cost to run the business. And like imagine we're just gonna say that's $100.
Yeah.
And like you're charging, $10 a month, so you're making $120 over the course of the year. Like imagine that like you incentivize your customer over time by lowering the price towards the break even cost. And so you're incentivizing them to stay with you, over time, but your kind of profit on a per customer basis goes down depending on the length of time. So like, you might start at, Netflix at $15 a month, but by the end of it, it's the cost to run the business plus 5% or whatever. And so you're afraid to cancel your Netflix subscription because if you were to rejoin, it would be $20 a month. But because you've been paying for so long and been a loyal customer, it's now 12.
Yeah,
Right.
because that plays off the idea that people value their time more than anything. Like if
Yeah.
you have a red light that's 10 seconds too long, people are frustrated because, oh my gosh, I can't wait that long. And so if you've built up all of that investment into getting to that break even point, you're not going to want to cancel. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
Exactly. So like I think that's an interesting model because again, like I think if you started out, like let's say it's $20 a month, and then in 5 years, because you've been a loyal customer, we've reduced your cost down to the $10 that it costs us to run the business plus $2 in profit.
Yeah.
Well, like you're not incentivized at all to leave because if you come back, it's gonna be double the cost. And so I think somebody should look at using this business model. I think it'd be really smart for stickiness.
I was just about to say that's the word I'd use is stickiness.
I also think, and it won't work in this kind of market or anything like that. Mike is terrible right now, but for the real estate business, it'd be interesting to see if you could have like a rent started this much, you stay 3 or 4 years, it's going to lower to this much. And now with the volatility and stuff like that, and the price is just increasing and things, it's probably not viable. But that popped into my head was like, okay, you could stick someone, have someone live there for 4 years, not have to have any turnover or anything like that, have them pay a lower amount as they go.
But you also have to worry about the arbitrage too, like the amount of like, how do you find the point at which you said the plus $2? Well, from a business standpoint, it's like, well, what if you did break even plus $3? Well, then you just went up another 50% or whatever that would be. Or if you did $4. And so you got to find that like sweet spot. And as a business owner, you're always trying to maximize your profits, or at least a lot of them are. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. I think there could be some hesitation between going to that model.
Yeah, well, but if you think about it though, the economy of scale works in your favor too. So like if you have a lot of people who stay and aren't leaving, the cost for your business goes down over time because you're hitting scale. And so in theory, their costs go down, your costs go down, and so your margin, stays relatively the same. I think like you just have to determine like, okay, what's the flat line, place where it's like I can't go below this,
Right.
or we're not making, any money whatsoever. But I mean, I think the great part about that model is that by incentivizing people to stay, you lower your own cost basis, and so your margin stays the same.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. Okay. Well, as we start to,
we talked about a lot today.
I know
Yeah.
my brain is spinning. Like, what other questions can I even ask? I was just going to say, as we start to wrap up, you guys have any questions pondering in your head going on here?
I don't think so.
What are next steps for you guys? I mean, you're graduating here in a couple days.
Dude, it's weird. I don't know. We're still trying to figure out our lives, honestly.
I think that's okay though.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourselves on that. Take your time.
I don't really have an answer. I'm going to keep podcasting. I'll keep running. I'll keep taking ice baths. That's about the 3 things that I know.
Yeah.
That's besides I guess I'll be on the podcast too. So it's pretty much the same for me. I'm just going to look for jobs and maybe be in Wichita, maybe won't be in Wichita. We'll see.
That's cool. No, I'm excited for you guys. And you guys just won. the Shocker New Venture competition as well. I wanted to congratulate you on that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate them putting that on. It was a really exciting opportunity, and there's a lot of great competition. Grant, I don't agree with the place that you came in.
No, it's chill.
But your
It's chill.
your vision vest is great, and your presentation was phenomenal.
I appreciate that. And if I were to lose anybody, I wanted it to be you guys.
Yeah.
You make me cry out here, dude.
Yeah.
Shut the camera off. Gearing up. Okay. Well, as we start to wrap up, if you guys enjoyed this episode, if you got any sort of value out of it, please share it with a friend. It helps us grow, and we greatly appreciate that. You can find John online at
The John Pete.
you can find if you want to connect with Dane, you connect with him.
Yeah, at Dane Laughlin on LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Okay. And then Grant.
At Grant Johnson on LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go blow up their LinkedIn's. We're gonna break the internet, guys.
That sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's always great.
See ya.